Thank you for the intro. My name is Yosef Silver, and today we're going to talk a little bit about unleashing the power of your email marketing program and the mistakes you may not realize you're making. Email is an incredibly cost-effective platform, and a lot of people dive in with both hands, and they're excited to launch their email program. And in that effort and in that energy, they may not realize ways to improve or optimize their email campaigns. So I like to share the knowledge. I get very excited about email. So we will dive into all of this today. And please do not forget to ask me questions. Follow me on Twitter. Let's have a conversation. And if you have a question about my presentation today, or if you want to follow up with me in another day, I'm always happy to talk to people about their marketing challenges with email. So at the outset, there's really 4 areas I want to discuss with you today. And these are the areas where I usually see the most mistakes happening. People have the best intentions, and they just don't realize that they could be doing things either a little bit better, or what they're doing is perhaps hurting their campaign rather than helping it. The first area we're going to dive into is going to be your data. What are you looking at? Are you looking at the right thing? Are you missing an opportunity altogether? And we're going to dive into data pretty much throughout this presentation. I'm going to keep coming back to that time and again. So data is very important to many marketers, and I'm going to share the sort of things that I am looking for as part of an email campaign. The next thing we will look at is automation. Are you doing automation already? Excellent. Are you doing it well? Potentially, could your automation be hurting your email marketing program? Some brands don't realize how accessible email automation has become today. It's very accessible to businesses of all sorts of sizes. So we're going to look at 3 examples of the things you can do for your brand. Next up, what are the mistakes or missed opportunities when it comes to growing your email list? What can you do a little bit differently there? And then finally, planning. So many brands hustle to get an email out of the door, and their deliverable is like, oh, it's Wednesday, let's send this email. I want to talk to you about things that I do from a planning process that make you more efficient, more relaxed, and more successful with your email marketing. So the first problem I usually see with an email program when people bring me in to take a look or look for areas to improve is you're not spending enough time with your data. What is the right data to be looking at? And how do you use this to your advantage? Now, for many of you, do you know the average open rate? Probably. Click-through rate, revenue per email, less so. What about your target cost per acquisition for a new email subscriber? What is the value of an email subscriber, and what are you willing to spend to get one? Now, in my humble opinion, you need to know all of that data as well as you know your own phone number. Because when you know this data, you know what to do. You know you're investing your marketing dollars in the right space. So with this example, with this brand, email was the best converting channel after referral traffic. It was the most valuable traffic I was able to control. I was VP marketing at this brand, had limited resources, and wanted to maximize return on investment. So I saw this as an opportunity to maximize ROI through email. We actually dialed back on social, we dialed back on SEO, and we invested a lot of time in email. And the results, increasing conversions, our conversion rate went up, our transactions went up, and this generated more than $500,000 in revenue over a 6-month period. So which data do I think is important? The list size, delivery rate, open rate, these first 6 listed here, you can get these from your email provider. They're pretty easy and accessible. But the last 2, you might need to do a little more digging based on the platform you're using, based on the way your company's set up or your business model. But try and get all this data. Could be that your average revenue, your email program isn't there to generate revenue and it's there to generate leads, but populate as much data as you can. Put a value to everything that you can. Because when you know your data, you can track and you can measure your averages. So you get to know which segments perform and how you can increase the data points that matter. So what do I mean by that? Go back to the sheet and you can build this sort of calculator in Excel or a Google Sheet and start to populate this. Start to put in the averages from your list. And when you know your average order value, the average revenue per order, you get to know things like this. And you get to understand that if you manage to increase your open rate by a couple of points, well, that's going to have this impact on bottom line. And you can do this by collecting the data you have the access to, tweaking it in a Google Sheet, and predicting what's going to happen. And then when you can do that, you realize that making money through email makes sense for your brand. Now, what we're going to do is dive into some of the things that you can test, because all of these rates and all of these numbers that you can control can all be tested. When you're testing, you can see things like this. Which are the links that people are clicking on? Which are the call to actions, the ones that people are engaging? Do you need more buttons in your email, or do you have enough in there to suffice? And then when you're doing the testing, you're looking at the data points, you can see that these two emails perform so incredibly differently. Just by changing the subject line, you're able to double the open rate, or you're able to increase clicks from 3 points to 8.4. And that's the sort of thing that you can only do when you really look at your data time and time again and collect that and return it over again. Now, the next mistake I see over and over again is no automation. People don't realize how accessible automation is, or if they do, bad automation is almost worse than having no automation at all. There's lots of things you can automate, but when you get it wrong, it makes your brand look bad. So we're going to start off with an example. This is a brand that I happen to love. I love the product. I don't think I could run my agency without it. I signed up for the product, and then I got this email. It all looks good. There's personalization. It's relatable. I just ended my trial. It's not too promotional. It makes me think, hey, yes, I do want this. Except this was one of 3 emails I got from them in 3 days. My trial has ended. Thank you for signing up. Hey, come back. Your trial ended. Well, this led me to go back to the company and say, hey, what's going on? I paid, you charged my credit card, probably spent half an hour looking into this, only to learn that, you know what, that automation wasn't set up great. Now, if it wasn't that this is a tool that I really value and really liked, if this was something I was on the fence with, this might be enough for me to say, you know what, they don't know what they're doing, I'm going to walk away. So if you're writing automations for your emails, make sure that the triggers are correct. Make sure that if you're thanking someone for becoming a customer, they don't get a reminder email to sign up, because stuff like that is only going to cause confusion and frustration with your customers. If you're selling product, an abandoned cart email is a really, really good first step. I like to send these to people because they have almost checked out. They purchased, they went through the process, and they got to the point where they were going to buy, and then they didn't. So I like to get this email out to them the same day, but with no incentive. Just tell them you've done them a solid. You've saved their cart for them. There's no discount needed. Why didn't they check out? Well, we don't really know. But if you do a quick Google, there's almost 400,000 different articles that are going to come up here. There's plenty of reasons why people abandon their cart. The cost of shipping, requiring a sign-up, fulfillment delays, and all of these are completely valid. These are absolutely reasons why people do not finish checkout. But there's one thing that you cannot control, no matter how much you optimize your website. People are forgetful. Something happens. They just don't finish the process. So in my opinion, you don't need to offer them an incentive on that first abandoned cart email, because they're just grateful. The incentive is that you're reminding them that they checked out. Be helpful to your customers. This sample text works. I have used this sort of sprint, this sort of verbiage for clothing brands, consumer brands, wine brands, real estate brands, service industries. Even if your conversion isn't a sale, but it's booking an appointment, go through something like this. And we're going to walk through now some of the key pieces that are valuable in this email text. First of all, make it easy for the audience to relate to the email. This is good practice in most of your marketing, but so many emails are shouting, me, me, me. Talk about the customer. We know how this goes. You're busy shopping, then the baby cried or the oven beeped. If it's the service industry, say the phone rang, someone came to the door, but make it something that makes sense for this sort of customer. Speak to the personas that you know are relevant. It's always rush, 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 especially with kids around, which is why we've saved your cart for you. We've done something for you. You don't have to start shopping again. You don't have to do everything from scratch. It's easy. Just click here to continue checking out, and your order will be waiting for you. Large call to action button, complete your checkout now. These work. Use a color that's likely to encourage a click. You know that if you've been doing your testing and looking at your data. With time, A/B test the color of that button or the verbiage of the button. Don't just set this and forget it. Look at it every month or every quarter to see how you can improve. And then finally, you're here to help. Make this so easy. Sometimes, maybe there was a browser issue, connectivity issue, but if they can just hit reply to this email and reach you, it makes it so easy. But make sure this reply is going to the right person. Don't use no reply or brand.com. Make sure that if you're telling people they can reply to this email, that this email is going to go to the right person, someone who will help them and will get back to them. Effective abandoned cart emails are all about the customer, so make it easy. And when you do, I promise you it's going to work. Now, you might still be wondering about that discount. These are some stats that show why I do not advocate for a coupon in that first email. Message 1 went to almost 3,000 people. Had a great open rate, great conversion rate. I was very happy with how this performed. Very similar verbiage to the email we just looked at together. Message 2 went out to people who didn't convert after the first one. This one had a coupon. So even though the conversion rate was higher on message 1, the total over here was over $60,000. You're going to have some customers who are going to abandon their carts in anticipation of a coupon. But if they get that automated message and there's no coupon in there and they genuinely want to buy, they're going to buy. So that is how I like to set up my abandoned carts. I'm going to move on to another type of automation now, one that I've also seen work very, very effectively. And I recommend, especially if you are in the replenishable goods sort of space where people keep buying from you, a lapsed purchase email. Lapsed purchase email can encourage existing customers to purchase again. And you can use these to reduce the average time between orders, because ultimately, more orders mean more revenue. So we use this to say, hey, we need to look at our data. We go back to knowing your data over and over in this presentation. So we use this to know, hey, what's the average amount of time that passes between your customers reorder? Let's say it's 60 days. Well, what can we do to use a lapsed purchase email to reduce this from 60 down to 45 days? And if we do this, what's the impact on the bottom line? By reducing the average order from 60 days to every 45 days, that's 2 more orders per customer per year. So you have to ask yourself, if you are selling product, how much more money would you make if every single customer placed 2 more orders every single year? This is a simple reminder to say, hey, you know us, we know you, it's time to order again. Another thing you can do, let's say you're adding new products or the season changes. Use your lapsed purchase to introduce the new season. If it's been 60 days and they haven't reordered, tell them, you know what, we've got a new product. The season have changed. It is cheaper for you to sell more products to existing customers than trying to acquire new customers. Similarly, if you have a lead generation campaign and your offering has tweaked or your offering has changed or improved, announce that if too much time has passed. Now, how you do a lapsed purchase will very much depend on your business model, your product offering, and your customer base. But in my mind, the goal here is to make sure those interactions happen more frequently and ultimately drive more conversions for your business. Now, the third automation I like to talk about today, and really the easiest for anyone to put into play, no matter what you're selling or what you're offering, is a welcome series. A welcome series is a drip of emails that can be used to build trust. You can use it to gather data, and you can use it to incentivize a sale. So in the first email, I like to thank customers for signing up and share information that they will find useful. This is our opening hours. This is our location. This is the FAQs. This is a walkthrough video of the product or the ebook. Build trust in that first email. Don't go straight into talking about your value, your benefit. Like, make sure it's about them. The second email, get to know them. How can you gather data that will aid segmentation? How will you gather data that you could use for future automations? Can you find out their birthday to send them a coupon later in the year? Could you get them to self-identify the type of product category that they are looking to purchase from? And then finally, incentivize. These people have just opted in. They might be ready to buy. The next thing I want to dive into here is missed opportunities I see when it comes to growing your email list. When you're emailing people, make sure these people have opted into you. It sounds obvious. Many marketers are probably nodding their heads right now, but so many people are buying lists, and it is not okay. Even if it's an opted-in list, stay away from buying lists and invest your dollars in growing your own list. I want to go over at a high level 3 opportunities you can use for growing your email lists. The first, how can we use social media to grow our email list? The second, what are some on-site opportunities? What can you do on your website to build your list? And finally, off-site opportunities. What can you do in the real world with other brands, etc., to grow your email list? We're going to talk about creating a lookalike audience that matches your highest converting customers, leveraging your website, your 404 page, your contact forms and checkout for signups. And finally, we're going to dive into some partnerships and how you can leverage in-order material to grow your email list. So social ads are very sophisticated. And if your email list is large enough, you can create a lookalike audience and serve ads to these people. So by uploading your email list or a segment of your email list that are the best converting customers, you can then run ads to an appropriate segment on a platform like Facebook. Now, this is a place where I would use an incentive. Make sure your incentive is lower than your cost per acquisition for a new customer and factors in your ad spend, any additional costs, any free shipping you're going to offer. Offer them a discount that makes sense to acquire them, to know the value of them being on your email list. And when you're writing an ad copy, follow best practices. Look at your best converting PPC campaigns and the verbiage you're using. Look at your organic rankings and which title tags have the highest click-through rate from a search engine to your website. All this data makes sense. You're talking to a customer, so use all this data to write effective ads. I always recommend avoiding words like subscribe or join because that sounds very committal. Rather than using words that sound like a commitment, offer some sort of social proof. Something like 3,000 people like you enjoy hearing about new puppies available for adoption, or $15 off your purchase if you join our community in the next 15 minutes. These are much more inviting and inclusive than saying to someone, subscribe now. Social media is a very effective way to build your email list, but so is your own website. And I'm not talking about putting a pop-up in the corner or offering some sort of download. I like to start with the 404 page. Now, the 404 page, that is something that someone sees if they come to your website and a page is broken. A product may no longer be for sale. Something might have just been transitioned incorrectly. There might have been a bad migration. Now, ideally, you don't want 404 pages on your website. But realistically, if your resources are limited or your priorities aren't there, you may have a 404 page. You may have plenty of 404 pages on your website. So what I like to do is, first of all, add a search bar. Adding a search bar is great, but adding a contact form is even better because when you add a contact form, you're adding value to the customer. You're adding a direct line to your customer happiness team, to your customer support team, but whoever it is. What you're also doing here is you're adding value to the business because you're starting to collect data here. If you are selling red wine and all your customers want champagne, well, maybe you should start selling that if you have enough people looking for it. You get to know what people aren't finding, so that could tell you what new products you should be selling, or how you need to rearrange your navigation, or just inefficiencies on your website. But finally, there's value to your email list, because over here at the bottom, you have a checkbox to opt into your email list. Now, like I said, we don't really want to have broken pages on our website, so I'm sharing this next statistic with mixed emotion. Not incredibly proud, but it worked. This 404 page had an average of 95 new email signups per month. So we were able to turn broken parts of our website into email generation, which in turn led to sales. Next, I want to talk about both contact forms and your checkout process. And those two ideas are kind of entwined. Both your contact forms and your checkout give you the ability to opt in to email messages. At this point, every contact method that you have with a customer or a user is an opportunity for an email sign-up. And at contact forms and at checkout, these people are much more likely to convert because you're not interrupting the process. You're not throwing something in their face and saying, hey, look at me. When someone comes to your website and says, hey, I want to buy something, and then you throw an opt-in form at them, you're interrupting them. But if they're already at checkout or already trying to contact you, you're not interrupting that user experience. So always have a checkbox on any sort of interaction to say, hey, yes, I'd like to opt in. Also, these convert pretty well without offering an incentive like a download or a discount. You can also leverage the real world offsite opportunities to build your email list. So I like to work with partner brands, friendly brands, brands who have a familiar or similar customer base. Two brands are more effective than one, so you can kind of create a team. By creating partners, you can co-promote your products and services. So if you sell high-end wine, partner with a food business. If you sell shoes, partner with a sock business. Find something that makes sense, that if it's not something you're already selling, you have a friend in this space, in the same city, in the same town, or just the same industry. Because when you double your marketing, you can double your marketing dollars when you split the bill. You can run a promotion to both of your email lists and get them to opt into the other. You can do outreach to bloggers to do a joint giveaway or a joint promotion and then split the bill. And I found that more and more companies are willing to create some sort of partnership because you're doubling the reach and there's a benefit to both of you. Now make sure you're clear in your emails and in your branding that you're running a partnership, you're running that branding. Put both logos on, otherwise you might drive up unsubscribes. Don't hide this from the customer. But one way that I have been able to leverage this to run paid promotions that one brand alone didn't have the budget for is by running a paid promotion to a third-party email list. Now, I said don't buy lists, and I stand by that. But there are many email lists that you can rent for the day. You can send your email to their audience as a one-time promotion. Now, if you're going to do this, you have to know your stats. I promise you that if you don't know your stats, you can't even begin thinking about paid promotions. And if you're still thinking about buying an email list, please just go in the backyard and burn money because it's a lot more fun. You can promote your content and your brand to someone else's list if it's relevant, but only if you know your target cost per acquisition. Seriously, know your target cost per acquisition, and then you can build out something like this. That same email calendar we used before, we're going to turn this into a promotion calendar. So if you are renting someone else's list for a day, you can know your data and make some basic assumptions about their similar audience. So these cells that are in blue, I ask for this data if I'm going to rent someone's list. Make sure the partner you're working with can give you this data, and if they can't, I would hesitate strongly about working with them. You need data, you don't need promises. But then you can start filling this in. So if you're going to spend $1,500 to email 30,000 people, look at these open rates and start making predictions. It will look something like this. This third column populates, and you can understand what sort of conversion you're going to have. But if you're not selling something, if you're not trying to use someone's list to sell your product, you can also rent someone's email list to convert them onto your own campaign. So let me tell you what I mean. Again, know your stats, but create an opt-in campaign. This is an example of a campaign I ran on a synergy audience to a relevant segment. But what we did is we sent this list out and we said, hey, if you fill out our lead capture form, you'll get a chance to win $100. By filling in that lead capture, they were opting into our list. So by sending this to 30,000 people, we were able to get a couple of thousand people join our list. And 3 or 4 years later, they are still active subscribers and have become customers from this campaign, which happened a couple of years ago. So if you're going to do any sort of third-party engagement with a list, use it to build your own. Finally, and this is so easy to do, and so few people are doing this. If you're shipping product, send a postcard that thanks them for their order. Do a text to join sort of flyer in the box so they can join the email list. This is a time to offer an incentive on the next sale. They've already trusted you, they've already had a great experience, their order's arrived. So put something in the box, as simple as a postcard, or send them something that says, hey, if you like what you ordered, we'd love to keep you in the loop, and you can order again next time. Now, the final piece of topic that I'm going to talk about today is planning. Email planning is key, especially if email is driving most of your revenue. I found so many brands who are like, oh, we have to send an email, but they don't invest the time to plan it. I had a client recently tell me they spend 8 hours a week just thinking about brainstorming the topics. Well, you can avoid that by having an editorial calendar. I like to plan 90 days out, but you can just keep it simple and plan 4 to 6 weeks out. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't be flexible. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't respond to something timely or an opportunity that happens. But most of the time, having a routine and structure is more valuable than just kind of winging it. I like to use a Google Sheet for my planning, but HubSpot have a great tool here as well. So if you don't want to just create your own, have a look at this because it's a perfectly great tool. But then as you're building out your editorial calendar, identify themes. Start thinking, have 8, 12 themes up your sleeve. You want to be original and creative, but that doesn't mean you can't be thematic, because it's easier for you to look at a calendar and be like, oh, you know what, St. Patrick's Day is coming. Let's do that sort of promotion. Or tax day is coming up. Do we want to offer some sort of incentive? So by building themes based on the calendar or building themes based on the sort of product you sell, you can have best picks or monthly bestsellers or recently reviewed. This helps you build out your creative. It helps you build out your email marketing calendar. For the best themes, go back to your data and see which emails had the highest conversion rate. Think about new inventory. Think about warehouse clearances. Think about seasonalities. And if you can't do this from the data alone, internal communication is key. Talk to people. Do the sales team want more leads? Does the warehouse need to make room for more inventory? Did the CEO launch a new product or make an acquisition? You cannot be an effective email marketer if you're operating in a silo. I also love talking to people, answering the phones or answering emails from people. Find out the questions they are answering the most often. What are the solutions your customers are always looking for? And add that to your emails as well. Next up, design in time. Even if that means designing your hero images, your lead images ahead of time, set aside 1 day a month to get a bunch of design done. That's fine. You can build things out later. You need to be organized. I use Asana for everything, and if it's not in Asana, it doesn't happen. But there's plenty of project management tools out there that you can use and leverage. Don't be afraid to batch process your design. Maybe you have a design team and a writing team, or maybe you're doing it all on your own. But make sure that you have things ready to go and you're not hustling the day of to send out your email. And then have a backup plan. Have an alternative campaign that's ready to go, especially if email's driving revenue. Your plan B email should not only be ready to go, but it should be something you can throw together quickly or you don't need to get approval on. Perhaps inventory changed or you need to ship from a backup location. Sometimes in the world of email and the world of business, you have to have a plan B. Rather than skipping an email, know what that's going to be and just pull it out of your back pocket and you'll still get your email out that day or that week. Also, it can be simple. 5% discount if you're authorized to do so. So my key takeaways, email can drive a lot of money if you're doing it right. I could talk about email marketing for days at a time, but if you just have 4 things to take away from today, it should be this. Please, please, please know your data as well as your phone number. Look at the data, learn from the data, ask me questions about your data. If you're selling product, automation can help recover money that you are leaving on the table. Grow your list, use your 404 page, use in-order material, make partnerships with other people. But a healthy list is always growing. You're going to have attrition and you want to make sure you have the right people on your list. And finally, plan and always have a backup email. I cannot emphasize that enough. The more you plan, the less stressful your email marketing program will be. And thank you for the time today.